Okay. We read in the portion of Toldos, Ve'el Toldos Yitzchak ben Avraham. These are the children of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram holis Yitzchak. Avram fathered Yitzchak. So the obvious question is, if Yitzchak is son of Avram, it's understood Avram fathered Yitzchak. So Rashi cites two interpretations, two possible understandings. La'acha shekor HaKadosh Baruch Hu shmo Avram, acha choler Yitzchak. Only after Hashem had added the Hey to Avram's name, he became Avraham. Only then was he able to father Yitzchak. We know the Torah is very exacting and careful, even how many letters it uses. Here the Torah is adding 4 words to tell us that Avram only fathered Yitzchak only when he became Avram. If you read the narrative, that he had no children, although Yishmael was born, and he says, you will be circumcised, you'll become Avram, and you're going to father a child. And you should call him Yitzchak. It's explicit. So it's only after he had the name change was he able to father Yitzchak. So what's the Torah telling us? Avram holis Yitzchak. It's obvious if you read the story. It was only after he had the name changed from Avram to Avraham, only then was he able to have Yitzchak. What is the Torah adding now, giving us any additional information? Avram holis Yitzchak. Do you know when he was able to father Yitzchak? When he became Avraham rather than Avram. Over there, the Torah tells us that when he had informed that he's going to have another son, it says he took him vayotze oso hachutza. He took him outside. So Rashi cites the Midrash that Avram was an expert astrologer, and Avram had seen in the stars that the stars had said Avram ein lo ben. Avram will not have a son. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Avram, ignore your astrology. It's true. Avram ein lo ben, Avraham yesh lo ben. Avraham, with the letter added, hey, you will have a son. And then the Torah tells us, Vayamin Avram believed, Vayachshve lo l'tzedakah, and it was considered righteousness to him. So over there, the Ramban asks, Avram had gone into the kiln, had come out of the kiln. Whoever heard of somebody coming out of a kiln alive? Hashem performed a miracle on his behalf. So now that God says to him, you're going to have a son, although until now you've been barren, why is it considered righteousness when he believes? If God says you're going to have a child, and Hashem has proven himself, and he understands, he experienced, he was a beneficiary of this exceptional miracle firsthand. So why is it considered righteousness now that he believes that God's going to give him a son? So because of this, the Ramban explains, when the Torah says, Vayachshve lo l'tzedakah, it was considered a righteousness, not it was a righteousness for Avram. That when Avram was told he was going to have a son, he attributed the gift of the son to God's righteousness. Well, as worthy as he was, he never felt that he is entitled or deserving of anything. So he saw it as God's beneficence to give him the son. So Vayachshve lo l'tzedakah is not going on Avram's tzedakah, it's a righteous for Avram, but rather God. The Maharal of Prague explains it, that the miracle that Avram had experienced was on the terrestrial level. He was thrown into the kiln and came out alive. Now, what's the difference between the terrestrial and the celestial? On the terrestrial level, we have seasons. People are born, people die, people age. Things sprout, grow, they wither. The terrestrial existence is always in flux. There's always change. There's always movement. It's going from one level to another level, regrowth, resurgence. It wanes, it peaks. That's continuous. That's what terrestrial existence is. So what's miracle? nature is called natural. Miracle is called supernatural. It's out of the ordinary. It's change, but it's a drastic change. It's an unusual change, but it's change. So the change is still within the context of change. On the celestial level, there's no change. The sun rises, sun sets. You have the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxies. Basically, everything is set to where it is. There's no change. Avram saw in the zodiac, which is the celestial, Avram ein lo ben. So if Avram ein lo ben, the miracle he experienced was on the terrestrial level. Where do we find God changed the celestial? God doesn't change the zodiac. God changed the zodiac to say Avraham yesh lo ben. That's a new level of belief. So that he believed that was considered righteousness for Avram. This is how the Maharal of Prague explains this. That's Vayachshua lo l'tzedakah. Hashem says to Avram ein lo ben, Avram yesh lo ben. So we asked, why is it necessary for the Torah to write 4 additional words to inform us? You read the narrative. When he was Avram, he wasn't going to have a child. With the added hay, he's having a child. So the Midrash tells us that based on the pasuk in Tehillim, verse in Tehillim, it says, "B'kah Hashem tzura lomim." With the spirituality which lies within the letter of Yud and Hey, God created the worlds. Olam Hazeh, the physical world, was created with the spirituality of the Hey. Olam Haba, the world to come, was created within the spirituality that lies in the letter of Hey, is the physical world, and the spiritual world, Yud. Hashem says to Avram, for you to be able to father the future patriarch of the Jewish people, what was needed to create all existence, that energy that's needed to bring about a metamorphosis in you, that you're capable and qualified to father the future patriarch, to be the founding patriarch, to father the future patriarch, which ultimately will father the third patriarch, Yaakov. If you read the story, Avram ein lo ben, Avram yesh lo ben, that's the zodiac. That's a change of name. Avram Hulad Yitzchok. The Torah is writing an additional 4 words. Do you know why Avram was able to father Yitzchok? Because it was Avraham. If you read the narrative, Avram couldn't father a child. If the Torah is writing, repeating this, Avram Hulad Yitzchok, it was only because the Hay was added to his name. To communicate this concept, that what it takes to bring about all existence, that same approach, that same infusion of energy was necessary to bring about a change in Avram to be able to father Yitzchok, the future patriarch of Klal Yisrael. That's Avram Hodas Yitzchok. So therefore, who is Yitzchok? Who is Avram? Avram is considered Tchilas Abriya. He's a new existence. He's not part of the original existence. So therefore, the Maharal explains that at the beginning of creation it says, Bihi Boram. He Boram, the Midrash says, Osios Avraham. If you rearrange the words, the letters, it's Avram. Avram is considered the beginning of new creation. He doesn't cite this Chazal, this Midrash, that the Hay, physical existence came through the Hay. That's the Yalkut. What it took to create existence, what it takes to make a change within you to be able to father the future patriarch of Jewish people. So this is being communicated through Avram Hulad Yitzchok. The Torah tells us, Vahi Yitzchok ben Avram Shana Bekachtos Rivka. Yitzchok was 40 years old when he took Rivka Bas Besuel Ho'arami Mipad Narom Achos Lovon. When he married Rivka, the daughter of Besuel, the Aramean, who came from Paddan Aram, that was the name of the location, Achos Sif Lovon Harami. He was the sister of Lovon. She was Lovon Harami, the Aramean, Lo Isha. So Rashi again cites the Midrash. V'chi adayin lo nichtav she bas Besuel. The whole narrative, Eliezer negotiating for the hand of Rivka. He dealt with Besuel. He dealt with Lovon. He had come to a location called Aram Naraim, Paddan Aram. So why is this information so pertinent to identify Rivka? Rivka, she's the daughter of Bas Suel, Paddan Aram, Lavan is a brother of hers. Chadayin lo nichtav she Bas Suel, ach Uslovon, ubi Paddan Aram, el lahagit shvocha. The reason why the Torah is mentioning here is to speak about her praiseworthiness. Shehoisa Bas Rosha, daughter of an evil man. Achos Rosha, the sister of an evil person. Umekoma Anshe Resha. Her location, they were evil people. Evil from A to Z. Every level of environment is evil. V'lo lomda maseyan. And despite all that, she did not learn from their ways. She was a tzaddikus, devoutly righteous woman, worthy to be the aim, the future matriarch of Klal Yisrael. So I asked the simple question. Her father was evil, her brother was evil, the members of the community were evil. Anshe Resha, v'lo lomda maseim. And what is her claim to fame? Her praise, she did not learn from their ways. Okay, she did not learn from their ways. But how did she become such a righteous woman? You have to be taught spirituality. Her father didn't teach her anything about God. Father was a pagan. Her brother was a pagan. The people were pagans. They were evil people. Even if she didn't learn from the ways, so where did it all come from? How did she become Rivka, who was worthy to be taken as the wife of Yitzchak, to be the matriarch? This famous question, which is asked by Rabbi Chanan Wasserman Zech Tzaddik Livrocha, Shem Yinokim Domo in Kovetz Maimorim. He has a sefer work called Kovetz Maimorim, compilation of various essays which he had written, and he asks a question. Rambam writes about Aristotle that the level of genius of Aristotle was so great that through his genius he was able to come upon concepts that prophets only knew those concepts because God communicated them to them. That's the level of genius Aristotle had. And yet, Aristotle didn't believe in God. He was a heretic. So how do you expect a 12-year-old girl, Jewish girl, a 13-year-old Jewish boy to believe in God? And that's he has an obligation to believe in God. If the genius of geniuses did not believe in God, what do you expect of a child? So he explains, Rebbe Chanan, that he explains it with an allegory, with a mashal. He says, a person, he has a canvas on a table, and he had vials of paint, and the window was open, and a storm was brewing. He comes in the morning, and he finds the canvas, a painting which is the equivalent of Rembrandt. And he calls in the curator of the most advanced level of art in the world to look at it. He says, you see this? The man is amazed. He says, I've never seen such genius in my life. With all my experience, what I've seen, all the masters. He says, I'll tell you how it happened. Tells him the story. He says, impossible. This cannot come about by itself. Impossible. So Rebbe Chanan says, if you look at this world, it is impossible to say it came about by itself. The genius, the symmetry, how everything complements everything else. It's divine genius. There's one imprint, one fingerprint. The same fingerprint wherever you turn. The Ramak writes in Talmud Dvorah, Ma'rabu Masecha Hashem. Ma'rabu, he explains, doesn't mean how numerous. Ma'rabu means that the dimension of greatness is evident in Masecha Hashem. Every Masa, every action of creation has God's imprint on it. The identical imprint. That's its level. It's impossible to deny that this is not God's world. So why didn't Aristotle believe? He says because Aristotle, when a person has a conflict of interest, and the more brilliant you are, the more you justify and misinterpret it to accommodate your own self-interest. Because it's called tava. A person has desires, that he wants to fulfill. And if he recognizes the truth, it interferes that he can't live his own script. He can't write his own script. Aristotle, through his unlimited genius, was able to prove and convince everyone that there is no God. That was due to his conflict of interest. But a child who's 12, 13 years old, they don't have that they don't have that conflict. Therefore, they see it for what it is. And what do they see? Heaven speak God's glory. So that's what this Chazal is telling us. Her father was a Rosha, Achos Rosha. The community was Anshe Resha. Because she was Lolom de Maaseyim, because she didn't live from the ways. Therefore, she saw the world as what it's evident to be. It is God's world. Therefore, she was a tzaddikus. It said, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh points out that normally when you speak about the pedigree of a person, you speak about the person and his father. Since when do we speak about the brother? If you go without the Chazal, without the Medrash. Despite her brother being evil, this one being evil. So he quotes the Gemara. The Gemara tells us, the Medrash tells us, that when you marry a woman, you should look into her brothers to see who they are, whether they're tzaddikim, whether they're rishoyim, what quality character do they have. Why? Because rov bonim ach achreim. The majority of one's children will reflect the characteristics of the brothers, of the mother. So over here, if you check the characteristics of the brother, Lavan, it's not something to bring home. That kind of pedigree, that type of behavior. Because he's pointing out that you could ask a question. Rivka was a tzaddikus. So if she was a tzaddikus, he says, how could such a blessed womb produce such evil? Esav. He says, how could it? So the answer is, she was Achos Lavan. That's the answer. She's pure. But because she was Achos Lavan, she was sister Lavan, therefore Esav was an exaggerated Lavan. That's what Esav was. We know that Lavan was a charlatan. He was the expert in deception. Esav outpaced Lavan many times over. But it's the same, they're cut from the same cloth. That's what the Torah is saying. Achos Lavan, that you shouldn't for a moment suspect that Rivka is not who she really is in terms of being pure, being a tzaddikus, being worthy. But factually, he says, so, but Yitzchok maybe shouldn't have married her. If there's that chance that she may have that kind of son, or they'll have that kind of child, he shouldn't have married her. He didn't have a choice. She was the best. There was nobody else who he could marry. And not only that, by the Akedah, Avram was informed after the Malach told him to withdraw his hand that a daughter was born to Besuel, and that daughter was the soulmate of Yitzchok. Therefore, this is by divine instruction. She's the one. So whatever the outcome will be, it's irrelevant. Therefore, he married Rivka. Okay? In last week's reading, Parsha, at the end of the Parsha, after the Torah tells us how Eliezer negotiated the hand of Rivka, he's coming back, and the Torah tells us, V'yetze Yitzchok l'such basodeh. He goes to stroll, or Yitzchok tikin tfilas mincha, ein sicha letfila. Sicha means tfila. By Yisas Einov, he lifted his eyes. Vayar es ha-gemalim mirochok. He saw the camels in a distance, and this was Rivka with Eliezer coming. Why is that important for us to know? He saw camels. He says you see it by Sodeh, he comes home, Eliezer brings Rivka, he marries her, brings her into the tent of Sorah. Why is it important for us? He saw camels coming from a distance. What does that tell me about What relevance, or what's the value of that information? Well, we want to make it something, it should be interesting, exciting. He saw camels, making dramatic. And now he's going to present Rivka. Evidently, Torah is telling us much more than that. What's it telling us? So what I was thinking, we find that after Yaakov took the brachos, which were rightfully his, he had to flee. He hadn't seen Esau for 36 years. Because besides being 22 years away, he spent 14 years in Shem Vever, studying Torah. So on the way back, he sends a message. Vayishlach Yaakov Malochim, sends angels or agents to tell Esau that he's returning. And what does he say to Esau? Hoyli shor v'chamor, eved v'shivcho. What I acquired was an ox or oxen and donkeys, male, female slaves. So Rameh Simcha of Dvinsk, in his work by Shor Chochmah, asks, why doesn't it say gemalim? Why only shor v'chamor? Why only an oxen and donkeys? He had camels. How do you know he had camels? Because if you read a little bit further, when he sent the gift, this very valuable gift to Esau, they were gemalim, they were camels. So why is he only saying to Esau, hoyeli shor v'chamor, I have the oxen and donkeys, when he has camels? That's the question Rameh Simcha asks. So Rameh Simcha answers, when he says hoyeli shor v'chamor, he didn't mean to say, he's referring to livestock, and the species are oxen and donkeys. That's not what he meant. A shor is a kosher species. What determines a kosher species? It chews its cud and it has split hooves. Chamor is clearly, without a question, non-kosher species, because it doesn't have either kosher sign. It doesn't chew its cud, it doesn't have split hooves. A gomel, a camel, chews its cud. It has one kosher sign, but it has a non-kosher sign. That's why it's not kosher. It's not a kosher species. So what he was saying to him, originally he received the bracha from his father Yitzchak. Hakol kol Yaakov ayadayim de Esav. When the kol is kol Yaakov, when there's no deficiency in the spirituality of Yaakov, ein ayadayim de Esav. Esav cannot in any way harm or affect Yaakov negatively. So what he was saying to Esav, in terms of myself, there's a clear discernment between the kosher and the non-kosher. I'm totally purged. I've removed myself from anything that has any reflection of what the chamor stands for. There's no gomol. There's no intermingling of the kosher and the non-kosher. Two signs. It's clearly discernible. Therefore, I'm not afraid. You should know where I am, where I stand. So why afterwards was he worried? Over there it says, because Shem Yigram Achet, maybe I became soiled with sin. But in terms of the obviousness, it's Shor v'Chamor. So what does Gomel represent? It's an intermingling of good and evil. It's not fully pure. So the way I understand, Vayetze Yitzchak L'Suach V'Soder, Vayisa Einov, he lifted up his eyes, Vayar Es HaGemalim, Boi Mirochok. Who are the Gemalim? What's Rivka? Rivka is Gomel. Because since she has a brother who's a Rasha, now what kind of child may she have? She may have a child that's similar to what? To her brother. And factually, he played out. That was Esav. So that's the Gomel. Vayaris ha-gemalim mirochok. He saw the species of the Gomel, which represents the intermingling. That's what he saw coming. But again, it was predestined. It was by divine dictate. He married her. But that's why the Torah gives us that piece of information that he saw the Gomel, because that's what the Gomel represents. It's the intermingling of the good and the evil, and therefore Esav came about. It's a famous word from the Ohr HaChaim HaKodesh. Torah tells us, Vayeta Yitzchak L'Hashem l'nochach ishto ki hakorehi. She was barren. V'yaselo Hashem v'ter Rivka ishto. First, the Torah tells us she was Achos Lavan, and then it says she was Akora. So he explains, we know, the Torah tells us that before Rivka left her home to be taken as a wife of Yitzchak, he and his mother gave a bracha to her. At Heyil Alfi Revovo, you should be in tens of thousands, you should conquer the gates of your enemies. So they gave her a very valuable bracha. So now let's say that bracha, now Rivka naturally conceives and has a child. And there's a Klal Yisrael. What are people going to say? You know what Klal Yisrael is attributed to? To the bracha that she received from her brother. Could you imagine? Mm-hmm. Our existence has any level of association with the bracha of that Rasha? Hashem says she's Akora. She's going to be barren. Humanly, it's impossible for her to conceive. Therefore, the bracha, it's like blessing a stone to give birth. Has no value. Now that she conceives, that's a miracle. So where does Klal Yisrael emanate from? From Hashem's bracha. It has nothing to do with Lavan's bracha. Therefore, first the Torah tells us Achos Lavan. Then the Torah tells us Akorahi. So if she has that bracha, she has to be Akora. She has to be barren. Now, Vayoselo Hashem v'ta Rivki ishto. Now that Hashem responded, now she's able to conceive and have the child. There's an obvious question. It says she had all this agitation in her womb, tremendous pain. And she says, Nochi. What is this all about? So Rashi says, if I would have known there was such pain, I would have never prayed to become pregnant, to conceive. The Rechaim HaKodesh doesn't like that because he says, whoever heard of a tzaddik complaining about being in pain? Rivka is saying, because she's in such pain, she regrets she ever was mispala. If Hashem brought about the miracle, it's going to be, that's the way it's supposed to be. You don't complain. He says the whole life of a tzaddik is painful very often. Does he complain? So he explains that because the agitation was so extreme, she felt the child's not going to come to fruition. The child's not going to be born. The child's going to die during his gestation period. That's in Keloma Nochis. He says, I pray there should be a miracle. Is it possible after Hashem performs a miracle, nothing's going to happen? What's going on? Maybe I'm not worthy. The miracle happened. She goes to Shem. Hashem, she went to seek out a reading of a prophet, of a Navi. Shem tells us, no, two nations, and because they're so unlike one another, therefore this tremendous strife, that's what's causing this. All this was, but they're going to be born. That, the agitation is not an indication that the child's not going to be born. You have twins, they're going to be born. She didn't know what it was about. She wanted to get a reading by a Navi. Avram Avinu wasn't a Navi. She should have gone to Avram, a father-in-law. People have in-house counsel. They have to go to a law firm. They have in-house counsel. She has in-house Nevi'im. Greater than Shem. Avram Avinu. Avamon Goyim. Avram, who's the Merkava. He's the location of the Shekhinah. Where could you get a better reading? Avram Avinu. Yitzchak's a Navi. Let her go to her husband. He should give her a reading. What's the answer? She did. She went to Avram. Avram, what's going on? He says, I don't know. Because a Navi only knows what Hashem tells him. She goes to Rivka, her husband. What's going on? Doesn't know. Because a Navi only knows what Hashem tells him. Goes to Shem. Shem, again, through prophecy, Nevuah, tells her what's going on. Shno goyim bevidnech, shnei lum b'mech yiparedu, lo memot, Rav Yavutzoyer, whatever it is. This is like fire and water, these two entities here. They cannot coexist. If one rises, the other one falls, and that's the future. Okay? Now, we know that Avram Avinu passed away 5 years before he was meant to pass away. He was meant to live till 180. He passed away at 175. Why? Because Hashem promised him he will die b'seva tova, in a good old age. If he would have lived to see Esav going off the derech, off the path, this would have been contradictory to the promise. Therefore, he did not live long enough to see Esav becoming that evil person. So therefore, she goes to Avram. Avram, what is it about? Hashem's not going to share this with Avram. So even though Avram may be a greater prophet than Shem, there's no communication to Avram. Yitzchak had to give the bracha initially, offer the bracha to Esav. And because of that, Rivka went and informed Yaakov, you must take it immediately. And he goes. So the whole context of Esav Soni Yaakov is due to what? Yitzchak not knowing the true nature of Esav. So that setting, this counterbalance of Kedusha, had to be in existence. Yitzchak, if he would have known the true nature of Esav, he would never even consider giving him the bracha. Therefore, it was kept from Yitzchak. Shem, he informed Rivka. But now, why did Rivka share it with her husband? She should have shared it. All along, she sees he's about to give the bracha. Esav is deceiving his father as his kitzai befiv. He's deceiving his father continuously. Rivka's watching this. She may be pained by it. She should say, Yitzchak, I want to explain to you something. There's nobody, a charlatan, a deceiver like this man has never walked the face of the earth. Why did he share it? She should have shared it with her husband. The answer is very simple. It's clear Hashem doesn't want him to know. Because if God wanted him to know, he would have communicated that prophecy to him. She doesn't yet know why Yitzchak. Avram, she understands. But Yitzchak, she doesn't understand why yet. God doesn't want Yitzchak to know, because if he wanted him to know the true nature of Esav, the communication of Shem would have been given to Yitzchak. But it was not. That's firstly. Secondly, when a prophet communicates something, you're not permitted to share with someone else. It's for you, but not to share. In addition, as I said, that it was not communicated to Yitzchak is an indication he's not meant to know. But in addition, so what did Rivka have to know? She should have gone through, worried, given birth to the children, ended the story right there. Because again, firstly, it was important that she should know the true nature of Yaakov, because she mentored Yaakov. Because he was not the favorite of Yitzchak, that's firstly. Secondly, when it came for Yaakov to take the brachos, which were rightfully his, who encouraged him to go? Rivka. Because Rivka understood it has to be immediate, because she knew the true nature of Esav. So she had to have the communication all along, firstly, to protect Yaakov from the influences of Esav, to mentor him as he should be mentored. Similar to what? Why did Sarah want Hagar and her son to be driven out of the house? Because she was concerned for the influences. Rivka had to know the true nature of Esav. As a result of that, she had to be informed. So Yaakov was mentored by Rivka, Beno HaKoton, and the favorite son. And therefore, when it was time for him to act, to take what was rightfully his, she instructed him. It's an interesting medrash. Elo told us Yitzchok. Avram holes Yitzchok. Avram fathered Yitzchok. Zeh shomer hakosuv. Ateres zekenim b'nei bonim. The crown of the elders are the grandchildren. V'tiferes bonim, and the glory of the children is avosim, are the forefathers. Pasuk Mishlei. Ha-tzadikim misachim b'vnei v'neihim. Tzadikim are crowned with their grandchildren. That's their crown. Ubnei misachim b'avosam, and the children are crowned with their forefathers. Ketzad. Nisater, Avram nisater b'schus Yaakov. Avram was coronated or crowned in the merit of Yaakov. Why? When Nimrod cast Avram into the fiery kiln, Yora Kodesh Baruch Hu Tzilo, Hashem descended to me to save Avram from the kiln. Omru Malchei Ashores, Ribbono Shel Olam. So the angels had said, Master of the universe, L'zato Matzil, you're going to save him. Kam Rishon Asid Lamod Mimenu. How many evil people will descend from him? From Avram. This is before he had Yishmael. This is before Esav came into existence. Omalem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'shul Yaakov ben Beno she'osed Lamod Mimenu. He's going to be saved in the merit of his grandson Yaakov, who will descend from him. In his merit. Ani Matzilo. Minayin, how do we know that Avram was saved in the merit of Yaakov, Avinu? Omer Brechi Oshkach Ksiv, Posking Yeshaya, Lochein Kom Hashem El Beis Yaakov. Hashem had said to the house of Yaakov, Asher Podo es Avram, who redeemed Avram. What do you mean? Where does he redeem it? Podo min Akivshon. He redeemed them from the kiln. So in the merit of Yaakov, Avram was redeemed from the kiln. So we find the forefathers were crowned because of what? Because of the grandchildren. Let's understand, what did the Malachim say? Why should he not be saved? If he'd have tzaddikim coming from him, he deserves to be saved. But they said, Omer lehen, they said, L'zeh tomatzil, you mean you're going to save this person? Kam Rishon Asid Lamod Mimenu. All these evil people are going to descend from him. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, B'shvil Yaakov ben Beno. So what's the answer? How do you answer? But still, Hashem's not saying evil people will not descend from him. They will. But despite that, in the merit of Yaakov, I will save him. The grandson. What's the answer? Now, it's very interesting. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says in Sanhedrin, that if witnesses testify in a capital crime case, the Bezdin, they explain to the witnesses, to the Eidim, what it means to take a Jewish life. What it means to take a Jewish life, because if they're not really 100% sure and accurate on the testimony, they're taking an innocent person. And you know what it means to take a life of a Jew? Saving the life of one Jew is like saving the whole world. So therefore, you have to understand, unless it's beyond any doubt, factually, it's exactly as you remember, only then you permit test, otherwise you can't. You have to withdraw from the testimony. You can't even begin testifying. It's interesting. One Jew is the equivalent of the whole world. So what is the counterbalance? You have 70 nations. You have one Klal Yisrael. We represent Kedusha. Hakol Kol Yaakov. They represent what's contrary to that. We are the counterbalance. How can we be the counterbalance? Numbers, we're the smallest nation. Always been the smallest nation. What is the innate value of even one Jew? 8 billion people. Saving one Jewish life, in God's eyes, has greater value than 8 billion people. We're not talking about quantitative, we're talking qualitative. So we speak about the counterbalance versus the nether forces, the impurity that exists within existence. What counters it? What vaporizes it? Klal Yisrael. What is the value of Nefesh Shmi Yisrael? It's equivalent to the whole world. When we speak about Avram HaIvri, Hu me'ever echel kol ol me'ever hasheni. Avram took on the world single-handedly. When he took on the world single-handedly, Hashem says, you're it. You are the equivalent of the whole world. That's who you are. He was the first one to recognize Hashem as being Adon. Yaakov, what are all the evil? If you have evil and you can't contend with him, we have a problem. Then Avram should perish in the kiln. But since he will have a grandson, Yaakov himself is Yaakov Ishtam Yoshev Oholim. He's the father of the Shiftei Koh, who ultimately stood at Sinai and said, Nasa v'nishma. We became the Am Kodesh, the Mamlechus Kohanim, the Goy Kodesh Mamlechus Kohanim. If that's the case, all the Rishon mean nothing. In terms of, because there's a Yaakov, we could vaporize all of them. We could counter them all. We could totally suppress it and even nullify it. That's Yaakov. That's Beis Yaakov. Amar Hashem el Beis Yaakov Asher Podes Avram. That's why he was Podes Avram. Because Yaakov is Ishtam Yoshev Oholim. That's why he's Podim in a Kivshon. Very interesting midrash. There's a discussion. Adrianus, who was the Roman emperor, had a discussion with Rabbi Yeshua, who was a Tana. And he said to him, based on a posuk, Kokli yutzar olayech lo yitzloch. All the plottings of the nations will not succeed. As much as they plot to destroy us, they will never succeed. Omer Yeshua, Omar Andrew Yonus, the Roman emperor said to Rabbi Yeshua, listen to this, Gedola kivso, homedes ben shivim zeivim. We're the scapegoat. We're surrounded with 70 wolves. A wolf could devour a sheep in a moment. We're surrounded with 70 wolves, the 70 nations. He says, look how benevolent and compassionate are the 70 wolves. The Jewish people exist. If we want, we could have just devoured you in a moment. So why do you exist? It's due to our compassion. That's why you exist. This is what the Roman emperor is saying to Rabbi Yeshua. Otherwise, how does a sheep survive? The intensity of anti-Semitism of the world as such, how do the Jewish people survive? It must be there is a streak of compassion in the 70 nations. Otherwise, they can't survive. Doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. Omar lo, so Rabbi Yeshua responded to the Roman emperor, Godlu haroeh, shematzi lo v'shomro, v'shovron lefoneo. Great is the shepherd who watches her and protects her and destroys those who try to destroy her. Kokli yutzar olayich lo yitzloch. All the machinations of those, they're not going to succeed. I mean, rationally speaking, it doesn't make sense. I always mention, Rabbi Yaakov Emnet says in the introduction to a Siddur, although we no longer live in an era of revealed miracles, we continue to live with one revealed miracle, the existence of the Jewish people. In the history of this world, there's never been a people who have been persecuted, exiled, displaced, destroyed as much as we've been. And we're still a thriving people. How does that happen? Only one answer. Godel hu haroeh. We have a special shepherd who watches over us. It's not due to the compassion of the nations. Hitler yimach shemo v'zichro, whatever he was. Right? If it was up to him, he wanted to bring about the final solution. Many times, there were many who wanted to bring about a final solution. But why is it Gedol HaRoeh? Because there's Beis Yaakov, Podes es Avram. Because Yaakov is Ishtam Yoshev Oholim, and he's the representation of Torah. And the objective of existence is that we have our very deep valleys, but Baruch Hashem, we have recovery periods. We come back to our senses. it says that when they were born, Esav's born first, then Yaakov comes out and he's holding the heel of Esav. V'yodo ochezes b'akeiv Esav. V'yikra shmo Yaakov. So Rashi cites the Midrash, Pirkei Rebbe Lezer, Simin she'zeh maspik limon v'achuso, that Edom will not complete its kingdom, at the end, Yaakov is going to take that from him. Edom will be destroyed. Will be destroyed. So over here, the Yodo. It says, Yodo ochezes b'akeiv Esav. The hand of Yaakov was holding on to the heel of Esav. So the Baal HaTurim says, the Gematria, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yodo and Yud Kei Vav Kei are the same numerical value. So She'omar HaKosuf, Posuk in Yeshayahu, V'oye b'yomahu, Yosef Hashem Shenis Yodo. On that day, Hashem will add again his hand, Uchsiv, V'olu Moshim B'Har Tzion. So the Chezes, the Yodo is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Just saw today, the Nefesh HaChaim writes in the footnote that Elokim is an appellation, unpronounceable name of Hashem. It's how God relates to us. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the essence of God. Yud Kei Vav Kei is Ho Yehoviyah. He's infinite. He's infinite. Elokim is, whether it's attribute of justice. What's justice relevant to? To us, to the world. Rachmim is relevant to the world. Yud Kei Vav Kei, in terms of its spelling, Ha Yehoviyah, God is infinite. Yodo is what? The Gematria, Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's very interesting. The Yad, the hand of Yaakov was holding on to the heel of Esav. The hand of Yaakov is Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's God's representation. And this Volo Moshiach. I always mention there's Rabbeinu Bachya writes that Yaakov Avinu's representation on this world is a direct reflection of Hashem. Why? He goes to explain that in heaven, the Kisei HaKavod, the heavenly throne, has 4 groups of Malachim, of angels, which encircle it. The number of all the angels in conjunction is 70. So 70 angels made of 4 camps encircle the heavenly throne. And who's the heavenly throne? That's Hashem. And where do they emanate from? They emanate from Hashem. Yaakov Avinu had children from 4 wives. Yaakov Avinu, it says, B'shivin nefesh yordu avosenu Mitzrayim. So therefore, Rabbeinu Bachya says, and the 70, from who did they emanate from? From Yaakov. So Yaakov is a direct reflection of Hashem. And he says, therefore, how beloved was Yaakov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He's his representation on the terrestrial level. So we say, Yodo ochezes b'akeiv Esav. Yodos b'gematria Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's 26. Yud Kei Vav Kei, Ho Yehoviyah. And what does it allude to? V'olu Moshim l'Har Tzion l'Shmar Yisrael. V'oyso l'Hashem HaMelucha. Through who is l'Hashem HaMelucha? It's because of us, because of Klal Yisrael. Therefore, it's synonymous. Yaakov himself is synonymous. He is Hashem's representation. There's a Ramban. The Ramban says when he had the dream on Har Moriah, so the angels descending, it says V'Hashem Omed Olav. God stood on top of the ladder. So over there, the Ramban says, it says in Tehillim, Malachov Yishmaloch. The angels will watch over you. Yaakov needed no angels. Hashem Omed Olav, God watched over him. There was no detachment between Yaakov and Hashem. So literally, because of that level of attachment, of dveikus, he needs no malach, he needs no angels to protect him. Therefore, Yodo, Yaakov's hand holding on to Akev Esav, Yodo's Gematria Yud Kei Vav Kei. Therefore, ultimately, they will be toppled through Yaakov.